Hi all, my name is Ryan and welcome to my channel What the Pop, where we discuss pop culture in general and Buffy a lot. If you like what I do, please like, subscribe and click the notification bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. If you have friends that like Buffy, share it with them. It all helps the algorithm, and consider supporting the channel through our Patreon. The usual spoiler alert. I may talk about things in these analyses that relate to future plot points. So if you haven't seen all of Buffy at least once and don't like spoilers, I suggest you like the channel, then come back once you've seen it all. Today we continue our look at Season 2 with Episode 8, The Dark Age. A plot summary. Guy in a suit is desperate to find Giles. Giles currently has his ears bleeding from Buffy's aerobicized tunes. Zombie Deirdre gets to Philip and starts strangling him, because he couldn't get away in all the open space around him. They both collapse, and Zombie Deirdre becomes a pile of goo. Giles wakes from an LSD nightmare. The Scoobies joke about Giles thinking math should be mathier. Giles tells Buffy about a blood delivery. Jenny pretends she is a monster to all books, then flirts with Giles. Police are in the library, someone is dead, Cordelia wants her ticket to go away. Giles identifies Philip, says they haven't spoken in 20 years, and we note Philip's tattoo, which cameoed in Giles' dream. Buffy's at the blood delivery, Giles is a no-show. Buffy attacks some vamps, Angel shows up, isn't particularly helpful. Buffy arrives at Giles' place to find him drinking and dishevelled. He tells her to go away. Giles finds out Deirdre is dead, only he and Ethan are left. We see he has the same tattoo as Philip. Buffy goes to Miss Calendar, worried about Giles. Cordelia says he seemed fine talking to the police. Buffy punches Ethan, finds out about the Mark of Igon, questions Giles about it. Ethan and Buffy get attacked by zombie Philip. Jenny gets knocked out, zombie goo gets on her. Giles takes Jenny home, tells Buffy to stay out of it. Of course, Buffy ignores him and gets the Scoobies on the case. Igon Jenny attacks Giles. Buffy bursts in, Igon flees. Buffy goes to protect Ethan. Ethan gives her an unwanted tattoo, burns his own off with acid. Igon Jenny attacks Buffy. Giles offers himself. Angel strangles Jenny. Igon jumps into Angel. The demons duke it out. Angel is winner and still champion. Jenny and Giles take a break. Buffy tells him to forgive himself. So this is by no means a bad episode of Buffy, but for me it is horribly disappointing. Coming off the setup of Giles and Ethan's history in Halloween, and that Giles has a dark past, and then the near perfect episode of Lie to Me, I always expected so much more from this episode than what was delivered. It is also a relatively shallow episode compared to most others, especially compared to, say, last week's episode written by Joss. So you'll see that this one is fairly straightforward. It has some great character moments, Jenny riling Giles up about the book he lent her, and their cute flirting out of that moment. Anything with Ethan and Giles, because their chemistry is palpable. Cordelia's interaction with Giles and the cops, and of course Buffy taking the grown-up role to help Giles. But the problem with this episode for me is that the story payoff of what Giles and his friends did is just rather bland and results in a generic monster of the week situation. The backstory itself is quite interesting, that they used to summon a demon to essentially get high and engage in orgies until one of them got killed. A drugs are bad, okay? Message to go along with the alcohol is bad message from Reptile Boy. But the way the fallout from the history was realised in this episode was just not particularly engaging. There are moments like Philip's death, which were just outright stupid. Sure, he was trying to get to Giles, but the man was outside being followed by a slow-movie zombie, and he just stood at the door and kept pounding away as this zombie got closer and closer. He could have ran anywhere, but no, he just stood there and let the zombie slowly walk up to him and grab him and kill him. What a bloody idiot. There are some horror tropes that are ridiculously overplayed, but I think the worst of them is that people in horror continuously make choices and do things that even the most stupid person wouldn't do in real life. And Philip's death is quite possibly the stupidest death I've ever seen in horror, because it made absolutely no sense. At least he could have gone with the, oh no, I've fallen over and hurt my leg trope. I can, however, see why a number of the things in this episode were necessary. It was necessary to put Jenny in danger to strain her and Giles' relationship, as it makes Jenny's death far more tragic when they are so close to reconciling later on. It was also necessary to have Angel be the hero and save Jenny. Last episode, Buffy says she wasn't sure she trusted him, and his actions here goes a long way to establishing that trust. It also makes Angelus killing Jenny later far more horrific. Bad things aside, we do get in this episode probably my favourite bit of world building in all of Buffy. A way to tell us further that the authorities are well aware of vampires and monsters in Sunnydale without directly telling us. And it's the morgue scene where Philip arises. In this scene you see the mortician basically doing a dead body stock take, because in Sunnydale there is a high likelihood that one of those dead bodies will just get up and frickin' leave. And I think it's absolutely brilliant world building to show that they have this check in place. Someone who, had he not been killed, would have had to make a call to let someone know that they had lost another one. In Halloween, we had to deal with someone from Giles' past in Ethan Rayne and deal with the ramifications of what the Scoobies wanted versus their reality, that notion of duality represented by Janice. Last episode, we saw how Buffy's central existential philosophy comes into play. Because there is no purpose in life, you are essentially the sum of your choices. This episode takes that notion one step further, that the actions you take have consequences and ramifications well into the future, further cementing the notion that you are the sum of the choices you make. In this episode, we learn exactly what the history between Ethan and Giles mentioned in Halloween is, and the effect it had on shaping who Giles is today. Giles, much like Buffy has been in regards to being the Slayer, was railing against his calling to become a Watcher. We've had a notion of this earlier, that Giles wasn't particularly happy about being a Watcher, as we learned in Never Kill a Boy on the First Date, that he wanted to be a fighter pilot or possibly a grocer. In the comics that extend the Buffy universe after season 7, we learn that Giles was put into training as a Watcher rather early. At the age of 10, he used some fairly powerful magic against a demon, and he started his Watcher training shortly after that. But an incident made him withdraw and give up his Watcher training. In Band Candy, Buffy says about Giles at 16, less together guy, more bad magic, hates the world, ticking time bomb guy. In this episode, we learn that Giles was 21 and, feeling burdened by his calling, dropped out of Oxford and got involved with a group of people into the esoteric he described as the worst crowd that would have me. Ethan Rayne, Philip Henry, Deirdre Page, Thomas Sutcliffe and Randall. Ethan and Giles found a way of summoning the demon Igon, which gave the person possessed an incredible high, and as Willow says in this episode, it was used for bacchanals and orgies. During one of those summoning and possessions, Randall lost control and Igon took over him. In trying to exorcise that demon, Giles, Ethan, Philip, Deirdre and Thomas only managed to kill Randall and failed to get rid of the demon. Now that demon has returned and wants to kill them all. As a direct message of action and consequence, it is a rather unsubtle one. You are responsible for the choices made in your youth and the consequences that flow from those choices, echoing the "you are only the sum of your choices" theme from last episode. It does, however, have a subtler message about how those choices shape who you are. And in Ethan and Giles, we get two very different choices and character developments to the same situation. As noted in Halloween, Giles and Ethan are yin and yang. Giles represents order and Ethan represents chaos. After Randall died, Ethan embraced chaos and the dark magic path they had been delving into. Giles embraces order and discipline, but it took him a while to get there. Given what he had done and his role in Randall's death, he felt unworthy. The time between Randall's death and Giles choosing to return to his calling as a Watcher gets expanded on in the comics. In Angel and Faith comic, in part 4 of the Death and Consequences story arc, Edna, Giles' grandmother and a fellow Watcher, says, "You were a young fool who felt immortal. did remarkably ill-advised things, and it cost people their lives, eh? You bloody idiot. This doesn't disqualify you from being a watcher. It makes you perfectly suited to mentor a slayer. They're young girls granted tremendous power. Who can relate to them better? A man like your father, who's done the right and proper thing his entire life, or you? Ultimately see that it is because of his transgressions in his past that Giles chose to make amends by embracing his calling as a watcher to redeem himself. A very common theme in the Buffyverse. As such, it's easy to compare and see how much Giles Ripper is a reflection of Angel Angelus here, a dark past with an alter ego who is now on a path of redemption. In the last episode we were still exploring the idea of Janice representing new beginnings and transitions, moving from Buffy's childhood, represented by Ford, to her adulthood as the Slayer. She had said, "It's good to be me," at the end of Halloween, once again embracing her transition to adulthood as she embraced her role as the Slayer. Buffy also had to reconcile both her past with Ford and Angel's past as Angelus. In this episode, she has to reconcile that Giles also has a past, and it wasn't all tweed, tea and scones. Igon the Sleepwalker represents that part of ourselves that we keep hidden, these secrets that we don't want people to know about us. We see in this episode that all the people who have this secret bear the mark of Igon, a mystical scarlet letter that brands the user and remains a constant reminder of their sordid past. It's noteworthy that upon finding out about Giles' past, Buffy also ends up bearing the mark of Igon. Secrets, of course, have a way of coming to the fore, particularly in scripted drama, and they do so here in a big way, changing the Scooby's perception of Giles when they find out the truth of his relationship to Ethan and their past. Giles becomes somewhat incapacitated by regret and drinking, basically becoming a belligerent teenager, shutting out those who want to help. With the only present adult in Buffy's life out of commission, let's face it, Joyce is barely a present mother, Buffy seeks out another adult to help and turns to Miss Calendar. But when Jenny gets knocked out when Zombie Philip attacks and Giles categorically tells Buffy to stay out of it, Buffy is forced to take the adult role. Buffy is no stranger to making adult choices. As the Slayer, she has already had to do so on multiple occasions. Usually, however, this has been done in conjunction with her Watcher. Here she takes the command, giving the other Scoobies tasks to complete in order to help Giles. In terms of the other characters, we see once again that when someone is in danger, Willow steps to the fore, as she did defending Buffy in Reptile Boy and took control in Halloween. Here she reins in a fighting Xander and Cordelia, and with her research comes up with a plan to defeat Igon. Having defeated Igon, even knowing what Giles has done in his past doesn't change how they feel about him, and it brings he and Buffy somewhat closer. Earlier, Ethan had said, "How does Ripper inspire such goodness?" And even after Buffy knows the truth about Giles' past, she replies, "Because he's Giles." A simple assertion that to her is justification enough. In the conclusion, Giles says, "I never wanted you to see that side of me." And Buffy replies, "I'm not going to lie to you. It was scary. I'm so used to you being a grown-up, and then I find out that you're a person." She sees grown-up here, she uses grown-up here quite specifically, because a grown-up to her implies order, structure, rules and authority. It is often a perception we have as children that the grown-ups in our life have it all together, that they've figured things out and have all the answers. One of the hallmarks of entering adulthood is when you realise that the grown-ups in your life are just people, mostly winging it and just trying to get through each day. Buffy takes the adult role here, offering Giles advice when he says about Miss Calendar, "I don't think she'll ever really forgive me. Maybe she shouldn't." Buffy replies, "Maybe you should." It is interesting that a past transgression, a hiding of the truth, is what creates distance between Jenny and Giles here, and as they are getting closer again, her lies about why she's really in Sunnydale will break them apart again. Well, they don't mention the title of the book that Giles lent to Jenny. They do say it was a first edition of a Forster novel. Ian Forster's most famous novel is Howard End, and one of the most famous quotes from that novel is, "Only connect. That was the whole of her sermon. Only connect the prose and the passion, and both will be exalted. And human love will be seen at its height. Live in fragments no longer." The line, "connect the prose and the passion," becomes particularly relevant in relation to Jenny and Giles, both as a metaphor for their relationship, Giles as the prose, Jenny as the passion, and because passion is the name of the episode where Angelus kills Jenny. My favourite quote in this episode is this one.
Just don't be late.
Have I ever let you down?
Do you want me to answer that, or shall I just glare?
It's a perfect representation of their relationship, as it is said with a measure of fun and no measure of malice. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this look into the Buffyverse, please like, subscribe to the channel, and consider supporting through our Patreon. If you've disagreed with anything I said or have anything else I missed, please put it in the comments below, and I'll see you next video.